All right, guys. So maybe just we kind of recap it. Let's talk a little bit about the Titans-Browns. I mean, the Browns came in and I think, they thought that they were just the bee's knees. They just thought they were taking over the NFL. The Browns fans thought they were taking over the NFL. They were in Super Bowl talk. And, man, the Titans put it to them. The Titans defense looked serious. And this was in Cleveland. I mean, it was not a good game. Baker had 3 interceptions. Chubb did nothing. Odell Beckham did little. It just was not a good game for the Browns. We saw frustration from Baker. They had a lot of penalties, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, just quickly, if you guys, just your thoughts on that game.
So for me, my one concern about the Browns was they ended up hiring the guy who was the offensive coordinator in their second half of the year when they had a little bit of a resurgence, right? But there was a lot of talk that it might have been, I believe it was Ernie Zampese, who actually did a lot of that heavy lifting for that offense. So they hired the guy who was kind of like the figurehead of whatever happened. And he may be way in over his head here. And I think that coaching matters more in the NFL than it does in any other sport because you have so many people on the field at a given time and you have so many different players coming in and out. And I think that when you look at this game, Tennessee has a little bit of continuity on offense. They have continuity on defense. They're not a bad team. They're a team that is like a fringe playoff team. And they came into Cleveland and they worked them. They worked them good. Mariota threw for 3 touchdowns, threw for just about 250 yards. They got the running game going. They didn't even get their number 1 receiver, Corey Davis, involved in the game, and they were still able to do work on Cleveland on the road for a Cleveland home opener. And they're psyched because this is the first thing that Cleveland has had to be relevant about as far as the NFL is concerned in quite a long time. And they still beat them by 30.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off that, the Browns don't know how to handle adversity.
There you go.
They came out,
clearly
scored the first touchdown of the game, missed the extra point, and from that point forward, they just got smacked around like rag dolls. And offensively, defensively, special teams, whatever you want to call it, when they got punched back, it was kind of like, wait, what's happening? Why is this other team putting up a fight? They're supposed to lay down. They should know we're Cleveland and we're darlings of the NFL, even though the season hasn't started yet. They look like a team that pretty much believed its own hype and thought things were going to be easy. And that starts from the top down on the field, from the coaching staff to the quarterback. And, I put a lot of this on Baker Mayfield because I do think he's too cocky for his own good.
No, definitely. Well, guys, it's been a fun recap show. I know there were several teams, you guys. If you didn't hear them, don't worry. You're still going to hear recaps of those shows or of those games on this show because we got a little SuperFan, some battles there, and some individual recordings. I'm going to have those right after let Robert and James go. Guys, any final words on week 1 now that it's almost in the books?
It's just week 1. And if your team looked bad, it's probably because most of your star players didn't play in preseason, which is why I believe preseason is still important. Cutting it down is not going to help this go away.
Yeah. Friendly heads up. Last year, 7 of the 12 playoff teams lost in week 1. So this week really means very little. So it is what it is.
All right, guys. It was definitely a fun week, fun show. Thanks for coming on and joining me. Appreciate it very much. I'm going to continue on with some SuperFan recaps right now. All right. Thanks a lot, guys.
Hello. This is Green Bay Brian, currently in first place in the NFL, joined by my good friend Chicago Tom to recap the Bears-Packers game from Thursday night. Tom, we talked about this game on Wednesday of last week. Where did things go so wrong?
Well, I think the defense played well on Chicago's side, but I think what went wrong with the offense was Mike Pettin. When Green Bay hired him, I knew there were going to be days like this. He's a very good defensive coordinator, and when he targets you for one game, he can give you a very hard time. When he was defensive coordinator for the Jets. He did a very good job against New England on occasion, and I think he targeted Chicago this time. Mitch Trubisky was confused. He was very uncomfortable. It was very evident. And he had a very miserable game as a result of that. His mechanics frequently broke down. When they didn't break down, they were okay. But there were times when there was a lot of green around him when he really wasn't under pressure, and he still would be falling back or thrown from an awkward angle, and it resulted in some terrible throws. And I think that and some very good deep Green Bay coverage pretty much did him in.
Yeah, I'll say I was amazed at what we saw from our defense. I figured we would be better than last year, but I had no idea it would be this good. And granted, it is early, and no offense, but I think the Packers are probably going to play some better offenses than the Bears this year. But I understand where you're coming from with that. Trubisky never really got comfortable. I had read some stats where he was under pressure like 40% of his dropbacks. So even if you get one of those 60% that you're not under pressure, you kind of always have that little voice in the back of your head saying, I need to get this ball out. And it was honestly really good to see the new free agent acquisitions really show out for Green Bay. Zadarius Smith and Preston Smith both sort of wrecked the edges of that game, and Adrian Amos played very well. He kind of caught that, what I thought was going to be this game-sealing interception. We ended up giving the ball back shortly thereafter, but all three of those guys played really well, as did Darnell Savage, rookie free safety. We traded up for him in the draft. Didn't get to play a lot in the preseason. He was out with some medical issues, but good to see him step in right away and play as well as he did. Why don't you talk a little bit about the Bears defense? You guys played amazing too.
Oh yeah, they played really well, Brian. I thought, of course, you can't ask any more than what they did. Aaron Rodgers was under pressure all game, and I think really the only drive when he didn't see a lot of pressure was the one that they scored the touchdown on. I was really happy with the defense. Of course, I thought they did a wonderful job. These young gun offensive coaches, it's the trend in the league to hire them. And I think sometimes we forget that these old veteran defensive coordinators kind of know what they're doing. And I think in this game, I think that's what happened. I think we had a couple of real good defensive coordinators with a fair bit of talent on the team, on the field, especially on Chicago's side. And I thought they did a wonderful job against some younger offensive coaches that are probably still feeling their way through making adjustments to these sorts of things.
Yeah, 100%. And thanks for that. It really leads into what I wanted to cover next, which is how important this game was, really the start of the season was to kind of come out fast for Green Bay. I think there was a lot of doubt coming into this year, doubt about whether or not Aaron Rodgers was going to be coachable. We got this new coach who doesn't really know his head from a hole in the ground. But it was nice to see us come out and win one just to kind of silence the doubters a little bit. I think if we lost this game, maybe lost next week against the Vikings, if we somehow found our way to 1-3 or 1-4, that's when you would start to hear the naysayers really start to hammer on the team. So I feel like this takes a lot of pressure off to come out and beat a division rival like that. Any final thoughts, Tom? Who you got next week?
We have Denver next week, and that'll be a real interesting game. Vic Fangio knows them very well, obviously, and I think they know the kind of defense Vic likes to run. So there won't be many surprises. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, and we got Minnesota, so that'll be I like to think that playing the Bears at Soldier Field will be a nice tune-up for playing Minnesota at Lambeau. Defense shouldn't be quite as stifling. It's a home game, and hopefully with an extra couple of days to prepare, the Packers come out hot.
Good luck.
All right, same to you. Take care.
See you later.
And it was the Kansas City Chiefs visiting the Jacksonville Jaguars and winning 40-26. There's a lot to talk about in this game between me, your Kansas City Chiefs superfan, and Ryan, our Jaguars superfan, but it's hard to really start anywhere other than the injuries. There was a crazy stretch early in this game. I believe it was late first quarter
where, first of all, Nick Foles threw maybe the best pass of the game, a deep rainbow touchdown, goes out with an injury. Shortly after that, Mahomes looks like he's off the field for an injury. There's a brawl taking place in the end zone. Myles Jack gets ejected from the game, and Tyreek Hill goes out of the game with an injury. We now know that Nick Foles broke his collarbone. Tyreek Hill has a clavicle injury that is going to keep him out for a few weeks. But what's crazier than maybe even all of that happening all at once, and Mahomes came back in, was hobbled, had a taped up ankle, and really couldn't step into throws for the rest of the game. But the backups for those two guys actually played about as well as you would have expected the starters to. Gardner Minshew, 6th-round rookie, came in through 22 for 25, 275 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. And Sammy Watkins, stepping in for Tyreek Hill, had 9 receptions for 198 yards and 3 touchdowns. I can't imagine that you're happy with the way that this game went, Ryan. But, I mean, do you agree? I mean, Minshew did about as well as you could have expected Foles to.
Well, with the setup you just gave me, I can do nothing but agree. And I'm at this moment probably much less optimistic than most people would probably assume about the Jaguars in general. But sure, let's start there. Gardner Minshew absolutely in this game did, I don't know, as good as Nick Foles could have done, as good as almost anybody could have done. He played well. It wasn't just dink and dunk. He threw some bombs down the field. He only missed 3 passes. I mean, it's insane, especially, when you look at how much preseason does or doesn't matter. He looks so shaky in the preseason, so shaky. And I was nervous about him coming in, and well, Minshew did he did great. He was great.
Yeah, and from the Chiefs' perspective, I expected the Chiefs to be able to, as we discussed in our battle, I thought that they might pull ahead with and get a 2-score win towards the end or something like that. But they pretty much had 2 scores in the lead for the majority of this game, and for all the hype that the Chiefs have gotten, it was always going to be difficult for them to live up to that in the offseason. But putting a 40-burger on the road on this Jacksonville Jaguars defense is still very impressive. They looked unstoppable. But, I mean, were you seeing some things on the Jaguars side of it was just screw-ups, or do you think this was really just, just the Chiefs having too many weapons?
Well, here's the thing. I'm not sure if I know yet, but I'm sure I'll change my tune a week from now. I'm taking an extreme pessimistic approach. This game disappointed me so much. On the flip side, I think KC can feel pretty good with Mahomes, as you all expected to going in the season, and he was incredible. And even on a hobbled leg, still basically couldn't stop him. But yeah, let me tell you the pessimistic approach, and that is, I'm not sure, as you were unsure about the Kansas City defense. And while Gardner Minshew looked fantastic, I should say. I'm not going to take anything away from him. I'm nervous because I feel like a lot of times a backup will come in, the defense doesn't really know what to do with that specific quarterback, and he looks good. And to me, everything is on week 2, and not just the offense. So I'm not singing praises yet. If Gardner Minshew has another good game, then I will. But the defense specifically, I mean, this is supposed to be an elite level defense again. And while the pass rush was getting close, didn't finish plays. And I don't know if it's the linebackers or the safeties or, I mean, screw it, the whole secondary. There was just no coverage. And the Chiefs' weapons just all look spry and springy. And once they get a ball, they make one move and go upfield. So I do know the Chiefs have what is at least likely the best offense in the entire league. But still, this is a defense that should do something, and they showed me absolutely nothing, and the alarms are going off in my head. And to me, I got to see week 2 because I'm not optimistic about either side of the ball right now.
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned going in our battle that the heat would probably be a factor in this. It was very hot and humid. I heard at some point the telecast mentioned a heat index in like the 120s. And I think it was one of those things where, maybe it was going to be the deeper team that was going to win here just because, it was just so taxing to play on that field. And I think there's maybe something to that the Chiefs were able to have so many guys at the skill positions that they can just keep rotating guys through. Whereas,